All right, let's dive into the mind with Jonathan Haidt's The Happiness Hypothesis.
Yeah, we've got some really interesting excerpts here.
Touching on ancient wisdom, modern psychology.
It's quite a blend. Buddha, Stoicism, neuroscience, you name it.
Like a practical guide to being human. And that rider and elephant metaphor.
Oh, that's brilliant, isn't it?
The rider, our conscious mind, right?
And the elephant, all those emotions and instincts and habits.
And Haidt's point is that elephant often has its own ideas.
It really does.
Like how many times have I said, healthy eating this week, and then chips.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Willpower hijacked.
Totally.
Yep.
So Haidt explains the neuroscience of it, right?
He does. The lycometer, always judging everything.
Our lycometer.
Yeah, constantly evaluating.
Yeah.
Then the older parts of our brain, all about survival. And the newer parts trying to make sense of it all.
So a constant tug of war.
Inside our heads, yeah.
That split brain patient story blew my mind.
Oh, isn't that wild?
The left brain making up a story to explain those hand choices.
It's like our brains are masters at rationalizing.
Even when we're totally wrong.
Even then.
Mhm.
Makes you wonder if we can trust our own judgments at all.
Right. I feel like I'm on autopilot sometimes, even when I know better.
It happens to everyone. That's where negativity bias kicks in.
Negativity bias.
Our brains are just wired to focus on threats, even tiny ones.
More than the good stuff.
Way more. You'll remember one criticism over a dozen compliments.
Ugh, it's true. Velcro for the bad, Teflon for the good.
That's it. And the amygdala, that little almond-shaped part of your brain,
Okay.
it's like a threat detector. Always on.
Scanning for danger.
Constantly. Reacting before we even consciously process anything.
So our brains are like saber-toothed tiger alert, but it's just spilled coffee.
Pretty much. No wonder we get anxious.
Then there's that adaptation principle.
Oh yeah, we get used to the good stuff. New car, a promotion.
But the bad stuff just keeps bugging us.
Exactly. That leaky faucet never gets any less annoying.
So, with that adaptation principle, can we rewire our brains to handle the negative better?
That's the million-dollar question. Haidt dives into that.
Okay, good. Because our brains are wired for negativity,
They are.
but hopefully not doomed to misery.
Not at all. Haidt offers a roadmap to happiness.
Okay, good. He's got this happiness formula, right?
He does. He says happiness has internal and external sources.
So it's not all just positive thinking.
Nope. Our genes play a part. Some people are just naturally more optimistic.
But our choices matter too.
Huge. And he has this equation, H equals S plus C plus V.
Okay, break that down for me.
H is for happiness, obviously.
Yeah.
S is our set point, our genetics. C is for conditions, the stuff that happens in our lives.
All right. And V?
V is where it gets interesting. That's for voluntary activities, the things we choose to do, the mindset we build.
So we're not just passive passengers?
No way. We can shape our own happiness. And that's where flow comes in.
Flow.
You know, that joyful absorption when you're totally immersed in something challenging.
Ah, like being in the zone.
Exactly. Musician in their music, athlete in the game, even someone solving a puzzle.
Losing track of time, completely present.
Haidt highlights all this research on flow states and how good they are for us.
I love those flow moments, but can we actually control them? Like, are there strategies to find more flow?
Great question. Haidt gets into that too. He says knowing our strengths, our passions, that's key.
To find activities that lead to flow.
Right. And set clear goals, embrace challenges. Flow often comes when we push ourselves.
So it's not about zoning out with easy entertainment.
Nope. It's about engaging deeply. Activities that challenge us to grow.
That make us think, use our skills.
Haidt's point is that real happiness isn't about chasing pleasure.
It's deeper than that.
It's building a life full of meaning, purpose, deep connection.
Speaking of connection, Haidt really emphasizes relationships.
He does. They're a huge part of his happiness formula.
Okay, so next up, we're going to dive into what he says about love and connection. So we're back, diving deeper into the happiness hypothesis.
Yeah, and this time, we're all about love and relationships.
Haidt has some pretty interesting things to say about those.
He does. He really challenges some of those common myths we have about finding the one.
And happily ever after.
Right, like it's all sunshine and roses once you find your soulmate.
But Haidt brings in this idea called attachment theory, right?
Bowlby's attachment theory, yeah.
It says we're hardwired to look for secure bonds.
Starting with our parents.
Then later on with romantic partners.
Like it sets the stage for all our relationships.
He even compares losing a partner to a child being separated from a parent.
In terms of the grief and distress.
Wow, yeah. It really shows how deep that need for connection is.
Deeply rooted.
So we're meant for love, but...
But we have to figure out how to do it well.
Right. which isn't always easy.
Not at all. We all come with our own baggage, our own attachment styles.
Some of us are more secure, some more anxious, right?
Exactly. Avoidant attachment, too.
Haidt goes into all those different styles, doesn't he?
He does. It's fascinating how those early experiences can shape us.
So have you noticed any patterns in your own relationships?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I think recognizing those patterns is really insightful.
Yeah, it helps you understand why you might react a certain way.
Or why you're drawn to certain types of people.
Okay, so love is this essential thing.
Absolutely.
But it's also complicated, and it's not all perfect, right?
Not always.
Haidt talks about two main types of love.
Passionate love and companionate love.
The butterflies versus the deep connection.
Exactly. And Haidt doesn't sugarcoat things. He's like, passionate love, that's basically a drug.
Whoa, a drug.
It releases dopamine, the pleasure and reward chemical.
I see.
But like any drug, the high fades.
So that initial honeymoon phase
It has an expiration date.
doesn't mean the relationship is over, though, right?
Nope. That's where companionate love comes in.
The long-term stuff.
Built on trust, respect, shared values, real affection.
Less about fireworks, more about a slow burn.
That's a good way to put it.
I like how he challenges that whole finding your other half thing.
Yeah, expecting that crazy passion to last forever is unrealistic.
This is a more grown-up view of love, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. He helps us see it as a journey, not a destination.
With both joys and challenges.
Absolutely.
Speaking of challenges, Haidt makes this surprising argument
What's that?
that sometimes adversity is actually good for us.
Yeah, seems counterintuitive, right?
Daily. But he talks about this thing called post-traumatic growth.
The idea that overcoming tough stuff can lead to real transformation.
Okay, I can see how it reveals strengths you didn't know you had,
Resilience, resourcefulness.
but how does that actually translate into growth?
Think of your life like a house.
Okay.
Adversity shakes the foundation, maybe knocks down some walls, but when you rebuild, you can create something even stronger.
More resilient, more beautiful. I like that. So we have to face our weaknesses, make choices about how we rebuild.
Exactly. He tells this story about a guy named Greg.
Okay, what about Greg?
His wife leaves him, takes the kids. Devastating.
Oh, that's rough.
But he goes through this incredible growth process.
Because of it.
Yeah. Rediscovering his strength, building deeper connections with friends.
Finding new purpose.
Exactly.
It makes you think, are there challenges in your life?
That, in hindsight, actually helped you
Yeah, I think so. It's like you're forced to grow.
to reevaluate. He's not saying we should seek out suffering,
Of course not.
but he says we should see the opportunity in those tough times.
To learn, to change, to come out stronger.
Right. It's about reframing those challenges.
Okay, so we've got this idea of growth through adversity. But what about the big question of meaning? Like, why are we here?
The ultimate question, right?
What's it all about? Haidt tackles this head on.
He does. He compares searching for meaning to walking into a movie halfway through.
You're lost. You need context.
We crave that. We want to know how our little story fits into the big picture.
Everyone has those moments, right? What's the point?
Totally. And Haidt says finding purpose is often about vital engagement.
Okay, what's that?
It's work that becomes a calling.
Not just a job.
More than that. It's where your passions and talents meet a desire to contribute.
Make a difference. He talked about alignment in professions, right?
He did. Finding work that lets you do well and do good.
You seem to have found that alignment.
Yeah, for sure. Doing work that matches your values, it's so rewarding.
You're not just earning a living, you're making a contribution.
Exactly. And Haidt found that people who feel that purpose in their work,
They're happier.
more satisfied, Like with geneticists and journalists, he found the ones who felt they were contributing.
They were more fulfilled.
Makes sense.
Right.
It's about finding that meaning.
But then Haidt throws in this whole other dimension.
Oh yeah, he goes there.
The divinity dimension.
He says it's not physical, but it's this sense of sacredness.
Like religious stuff.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Haidt himself is an atheist.
Okay.
He says our minds are built to see divinity no matter what we believe.
Interesting. So how does he explore that?
Through disgust. That emotion that evolved to protect us from, gross stuff.
Rotting food, that kind of thing.
Right. But it's expanded to include moral and spiritual boundaries.
So it's not just about avoiding physical contamination.
Nope. It's about drawing lines between the sacred and the profane.
I see. Like setting apart what's really important to us.
He has this example of the Linggaraj temple in India.
What about it?
It's super strict. Only people who followed all these purity rituals can enter.
Like a physical representation of sacredness.
Exactly. It shows how disgust is used to protect those boundaries.
Makes you think about what we consider sacred in our own lives.
Yeah, the things we hold inviolable, our values, our principles.
Even if we're not religious.
Right. It's about evoking reverence and awe.
Connecting us to something bigger. Have you ever felt that?
Oh, for sure. Like standing under the stars, seeing a breathtaking view.
It's humbling.
Or even witnessing a really selfless act of kindness.
Haidt talks about that feeling of elevation, right?
He does. Being uplifted by moral beauty, by acts of kindness.
He even connects it to oxytocin, the love hormone.
Yeah, there's research suggesting that link.
Wow. So we're literally wired for connection, for compassion.
It's amazing. He describes this study with nursing mothers.
Oh, tell me about that.
They watched either an uplifting video or a funny one.
Okay.
And the moms who felt elevation were more likely to, like, leak milk or nurse their babies.
So there's a physical reaction to that feeling.
Seems like it. Maybe elevation triggers oxytocin release.
Fascinating. But if elevation makes us feel love and trust, does it always lead us to actually do something?
That's a good question. Haidt says elevation often inspires us to want to help others, but it also creates feelings of relaxation, passivity.
So it's like a spiritual recharge.
Maybe. It's complex, of course. But Haidt suggests that awe, that sense of being overwhelmed by vastness, by something much bigger than ourselves. He says that can lead to self-transcendence, even religious conversion.
Those moments where you feel small, but in a good way.
Yeah, humbled by the beauty of nature, the immensity of the universe.
It shifts your perspective.
Exactly. Haidt draws parallels between these experiences and, like, religious texts.
Like what kind of texts?
Arjuna's vision, the Bhagavad Gita, that kind of thing.
Awe-inspiring moments, even for people who aren't religious.
Exactly. And he says those moments, filled with wonder, joy, gratitude.
They point to our ability to transcend ourselves.
That's Haidt's argument.
So even without religion, we can still experience that connection to something greater.
It seems like it. His research on the divinity dimension really challenges us to expand our view of what it means to be human.
We're not just about seeking happiness.
We're capable of awe, of wonder, of spiritual longing.
And that brings us back to that question of morality, doesn't it?
And God. If we're wired for this divinity, how does that play out in our lives?
With other people, how does that connect to our social side?
That's where Haidt brings in the hive switch.
Okay, what's the hive switch?
Think about bees in a hive.
Super organized, working together.
Totally cooperative, self-sacrificing. All for the good of the hive.
Okay.
Haidt says humans have a hive switch, too.
Times when we go beyond self-interest.
And act for the good of the group.
Interesting. So we're not just selfish individuals.
We're capable of amazing altruism, too. But how does that fit with evolution?
Survival of the fittest, right?
Right. That's where things get really interesting. Haidt brings in the work of David Sloan Wilson.
I've heard of him, an evolutionary biologist, right?
Yeah. And Wilson says group selection played a big role in shaping us.
The idea that groups that cooperate well are more likely to survive.
And pass on their genes, leading to traits that help us get along, be altruistic.
So it's not just about competition.
Nope. Cooperation is essential too, especially for social animals like us.
It's like we're wired for both.
Competition and cooperation, yeah. Depends on the situation.
We can be fiercely individualistic when we need to be.
But also incredibly selfless when we feel part of something bigger.
Like cheering for your team, volunteering for a cause.
Or even that energy you feel at a concert.
Everyone's on the same wavelength. Haidt even talks about synchronized movement, chanting.
From rituals to military drills. He says those things activate the hive switch.
Tapping into those ancient circuits in our brains.
Designed for group cohesion, for transcending ourselves.
So even if we don't always realize it,
we have that capacity for connection, for working together.
Like we're two sides of the same coin.
The selfish ape, driven by desires.
And the cooperative bee, looking for connection, meaning.
That's a great way to put it.
And Haidt says understanding this duality is key to solving big problems.
Absolutely. He's not saying we should suppress our instincts.
But channel them, use them in a positive way.
Exactly. Think about how people come together after disasters or to support a cause they believe in.
That's the hive switch in action.
It's powerful stuff.
So we have the potential for both good and bad.
And it's our choices that determine which side wins out.
Haidt doesn't sugarcoat the dark side either.
No, he acknowledges that tribalism, that urge to demonize the other.
But he offers hope, too.
He does. He sees a future where we use that hive switch to create a better world.
More just, more compassionate.
Exactly. He believes we can harness those instincts for cooperation, for compassion.
To solve global problems, build a brighter future. That's an inspiring thought. Makes you wonder, what can we do to activate that hive switch? So it's like our brains are wired for both, huh? Looking out for ourselves.
And connecting with others. It's fascinating.
We've covered so much in this deep dive. Negativity bias, adaptation.
That idea that adversity can actually be good from you.
Haidt's saying we need to understand both sides to be happy.
The individual and the collective.
What are some of the biggest takeaways here? What should people remember?
Well, one thing that really sticks with me is that happiness isn't just about feeling good all the time.
It's deeper than that.
It's about meaning, purpose, connection.
And paying attention to both our inner world,
Our thoughts, our feelings.
and the stuff that's happening around us, our relationships especially.
Absolutely. We have more control than we think, though.
Over our own happiness.
Yeah. We can choose to focus on the positive, practice gratitude.
Do things that bring us joy, make us feel that flow.
Exactly. And we can build strong relationships. Haidt reminds us how important those are.
He wants us to rethink love too, right?
Definitely. Ditch those fairy tale ideas of happily ever after.
It's about the journey.
Ups and downs included.
He says challenges are just part of life too.
Can't avoid them.
But we can choose to see them as opportunities.
To grow, to change, to become more resilient.
But that house analogy, sometimes you need a shake-up.
To rebuild something even better.
So we have to face those vulnerabilities, figure out what really matters.
And then, when it comes to meaning,
that big why are we here question.
Haidt says we should find work that resonates with our values.
Work that lets you make a difference.
Where your passions and your talents meet a desire to contribute.
Like you've done. You talked about how rewarding that is.
It's amazing to feel like your work is making a positive impact.
It's more than just a paycheck. It's about aligning with your purpose.
And then there's that whole divinity dimension.
I'm still thinking about that one. The idea that we're wired for awe.
For wonder, for a sense of the sacred.
Even without religion.
Haidt says it connects us to something bigger than ourselves.
Whether it's nature, art, the universe.
Reminds us there's more to life than just the material world.
It's almost like he's encouraging us to be more spiritual.
In our own way.
And then the hive switch.
The times when we act for the good of the group.
Like we have that dual nature, selfish ape.
And cooperative bee.
Haidt's book really is like a guide to understanding our own minds.
It's packed with insights.
He doesn't shy away from the big questions either.
Makes you think about what it means to be human.
So we've just scratched the surface here.
There's so much more to explore in the happiness hypothesis.
But hopefully this has given you some things to think about.
New perspectives on happiness, on meaning.
On how to live a more fulfilling life. What resonated with you most?
What will you take away from this deep dive? Keep learning, keep growing.
And keep connecting. Thanks for joining us on this exploration of the happiness hypothesis.